Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I am Justin, the astrologer.
I'm Nico, and I'm just shredding away on guitar.
And I'm Dan, a weed whacker.
And we are gathered here today to celebrate the final week of October. So the last theme of this October season is going to be slashers. That's right. This week we're going to be looking at slasher flicks. And where better to start than with the movie we're reviewing today, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, the original one from 1974. So this was directed by Tobe Hooper. Toby? Sorry. Starring Marilyn Burns as Sally. We've got Paul A. Partain as Franklin. We've got Jim Cito as the old man, a.k.a. the cook. Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker, and Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. And you probably recognize that name because he's kind of, synonymous with the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. So the film opens with the narrator, and he's kind of talking about some grave robbing that's been happening in this town in Texas. I'm assuming they're in Texas. And then we are introduced to a group of college-age characters, and kind of the two most important ones are Sally and her brother Franklin. So, there's five of them. They're in a van, right?
Yeah.
And they're just going on down the highway, and they pick up a hitchhiker who at first he seems kind of odd, and their suspicions are kind of confirmed when he grabs Franklin's knife and then cuts open his own palm. Now, that kind of makes the group freak out. They end up kicking him out, and they head to a local gas station because they, need gas. So, Nico, what happens after that?
So they get to the gas station, and predictably, not too shockingly, they ask for gas, as well as directions to Sally and Franklin's family's place. The station attendant says that he doesn't have any gas, and he also advises them to not go up to the family house and to stay for some barbecue instead. The group ignore his advice and head up to the house in spite of all the warnings.
So what happens after that, Dan?
So two members of the group, I believe Kirk and Pam, decide to go for a swim. So they're wandering around the backyard trying to find the swimming pool, and they happen upon a nearby house. Kirk decides to go check out the house, and unfortunately for him, he gets murdered by Leatherface. After a couple minutes, Pam decides to go in and look for him because he hasn't come out yet, and she also gets murdered. A little bit later, another member of our group decides to go look for them, and he also is murdered.
So after that, we are left with Franklin and Sally. And it's important to mention as well at this point that Franklin is wheelchair bound. And so given their terrain being more sort of like farmlandy, it is difficult for him to get around without Sally's help. And it's getting dark, so they go out to look for their friends. Leatherface ambushes the two and just straight away murders Franklin, Sally, and then frantically and smartly runs away, eventually making her way back to the gas station. Unfortunately, station owner's in cahoots, and he ties her up. It's revealed that him and the hitchhiker and Leatherface and also an elderly patriarch are a clan of cannibals.
So after they kind of kidnap Sally and take her back to their residence, they tie her up and sit her down at a dinner table, and there's food at the table, and we can kind of assume that food is more than likely her friends. Then they have the clan patriarch, who's this really old man, and at first you think he might be dead just from his lack of movement, but he's actually alive. So they try and have him kill Sally, but he's so old and so weak that he can't even really hold this hammer that they're trying to use to kill her properly. And that causes a little bit of confusion in the group, and Sally manages to escape by jumping through a window. So she runs out into the road with Leatherface and the hitchhiker giving pursuit. So finish us off, Dan. What happens there?
So as they're kind of running down the road, a trucker just in this big 18-wheeler just drives by and ends up running over the hitchhiker and killing the fuck out of him. The trucker sees Leatherface chasing Sally with a chainsaw. The trucker pulls Sally into his truck to try to escape. So Leatherface starts attacking the truck, trying to get in. So the trucker and Sally try to get out, jump out, and start running away. The trucker grabs a little pipe wrench and knocks Leatherface down, and Leatherface ends up, because he's carrying a chainsaw, and quite frankly, I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner. Leatherface ends up cutting his own leg and kind of maiming himself. So the truck driver kind of just like dipsets. The fucking some other like pickup truck just like drives by. Sally just jumps into this random stranger's truck, and then they kind of drive off. And the movie ends with them getting away, and Leatherface is just kind of waving his chainsaw around, mad as fuck that he didn't get to kill everyone.
I mean, to be fair though, like the killers kind of won this one. They got
They did. They got pretty much
they got
everyone.
like 4 people. Yeah, I mean, granted they did lose the hitchhiker, but I don't know. I don't think he was really a key part of this family, anyways. So let's go ahead and start off with this visuals and audio. So we're gonna start with the audio here. Dan, what'd you think of the audio in this movie?
So I thought it was really interesting.
That's a good way to put it.
There's actually, aside from 1 or 2 like commercial songs that they put into the movie, or commercial music, I should say. I don't think there's any like lyrical content, but all of the actual like soundtrack that was written for the movie, none of it was actual instruments. It was all done with like household items, appliances, things like that, just different like sound effects.
I believe that.
And it gives it a really weird, off-putting, creepy vibe. Like even right at the beginning of the movie when the narrator's kind of talking his shit, there's like this really eerie
Fuck this main character. Fuck all the sidekicks.
fuck this graveyard.
Fuck this graveyard.
There's just like this really eerie sound that just like right off the bat just gets you off kilter, I guess. And it just, I don't know, the music is just really interesting to me. I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was really, really unique.
All right. And I guess now, as I have you here as well, I'm going to ask you about the visuals as well. What did you think about the visuals?
I thought they were kind of cool. There was a couple cool shots. Cinematography was pretty cool sometimes. Like there's one scene when the oldest, well, not the grandfather, but the
gas station owner?
Yeah, the gas station owner, thank you. When he's driving after he kidnaps Sally and he's driving away in the truck, there's just like a cool shot with like from the side profile of his face, but just the way the lighting kind of lights up his face and everything was really cool. There were a couple like random cool shots in there. I enjoyed the video aspect of it for sure.
I was going to say, I also enjoyed the video aspect of it. I think from my perspective, so at the very beginning, there is a probably unintentionally hilarious part where, so they let out Franklin because he has to take a piss. And so they let him off by the roadside and a truck kind of drives by really fast, which results in Franklin falling down a hill. And the reason why I say it's unintentionally hilarious is they do like 3 or 4 really, really, really fast cuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, no, blah, 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 on the floor. And it was just kind of like, man. And, I know this was a very low budget movie. They didn't have a ton of funding. So that's understandable. So I'm not really going to, like hate on the movie for it. But that definitely stood out to me, especially so early on in the movie. It's kind of like, man, like, would it have been worth a reshoot? I don't know. But maybe just a little bit. Again, I don't like it when action is so cut up and had some severe cuts there. But there were 1 or 2 other moments kind of like that, probably not as severe kind of throughout the movie. In particular, when Sally jumps through a window, there was another kind of like series of cuts there. But aside from that, I agree with you, Dan, wholesale. Nico, so we haven't talked to you yet. What do you think about the audio and visuals? Where would you rank those?
So I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't as big of a fan of the audio as you two were. I will say that it made sense when you said earlier, Dan, that all the sort of sound effects, except for the songs, were made in-house. Like that fit. It definitely had this sort of homemade feel to it that gave it very much an uncanny sort of atmosphere throughout. But I will praise one scene in particular here for very strange, visceral reasons. There is a scene later on where the patriarch of the clan is sucking blood through Sally's index finger, and the way that it cuts and it goes back and forth so frenetically, and there's this not really an orchestra swell, but just a frenetic chaos of sound, and just the way that it went back and forth from everything in this sort of scatter of terror and pain was the perfect visualization of what it feels like to have a panic attack. And for what it's worth, that is really cool in the most terrifying of ways, I think.
All right. So as you're thinking here, let me go ahead and probe your thoughts a little bit more. Pacing.
Certainly.
Pacing. What can we say about the pacing of this movie? I mean, it's fairly short. Clocks in at about what, an hour, 23, 25 minutes?
Yeah.
How do you feel, Nico? Do you think we kind of got through what we needed to get through in the time that it takes? Do you think any stuff maybe lingered, or do you think we blew through it?
I mean, given the content of the film, I can't think of anything extra that they could cut.
So are you saying that you liked the pacing, or?
I'm saying that, it was a joke about the fact that it's called the Texas Chain Saw Massacre and they cut things. In all seriousness, though, I really don't think that they could cut much. Like, the beginning flew by. I thought it was... I didn't have any issues with this movie in terms of, thinking about it too much. Like, I sat down, watched it. It was pretty in and out experience. Like, it was certainly more disturbing in parts, but I don't think it overstayed its welcome, really.
All right, we've gotten your input. Let's get Dan's output. Dan, what do you think of the pacing here?
So I don't think I'm a big fan of the pacing. I mean, it's definitely not too slow for sure. I mean, you're right. It's not a very long movie, but I mean, the first, I don't know, 25 minutes. Well, no, I guess things do happen in that with the kind of the weird.
It's world building, really.
Yeah. But then you have like 3 deaths in like 10 minutes or under. And they just happen very like nonchalantly, I feel like. They're just like exploring the house. And there's some weird shit in the house. Like you're kind of expecting something. And then Leatherman just like pops out and knocks the dude in the head and he's dead.
Leatherman.
Leatherface, my bad. Leatherface just like jumps out of nowhere, clocks the dude in the head.
And he hits him with his Leatherman.
Yeah, right.
Tool. I was just fixing my clock.
So that just happens real quick. And then the girl dies like 2 minutes later. And then 5 minutes later, the guy goes to follow, to look for them. And then he just kind of gets murked too. And I feel like it all happens pretty quick. And then you've got, I feel like they spent a really long time on the chase scenes with Sally and Leatherface.
Yes.
I think that's the point, though. Like, the whole quick pace with which Leatherface dispatches the first 3 people is indicative of not only sort of his more primal, just quick-paced thinking as a murderer, but also the fact that, like, we're meant to, I think, as an audience, be sort of like whittled down pretty quickly in these situations to get to the most tension possible, particularly in slashers. And some, of course, do draw it out longer, but I think that given the sort of ferocity of our main villain, just the drive to get to a point in the movie where we can just have a sort of long drawn out hide and seek game with Sally and Leatherface is certainly one of the bigger emotional draws in the movie. So it is kind of disjointed at times, I will grant you that.
I mean, that's true, but I feel like it wasn't, that chase scene just wasn't emotional or didn't really do anything for me.
And that's fair. That's more than fair.
They're just like running through the woods. And for like a couple minutes, I was like, all right, what's going to happen? And then they're just running through the woods. And then they're still running through the woods. And then they get to the house and then they're running through the woods again. And then they're still running through the woods. And I was like, all right, like, can we not run through the woods now? Like, can something happen? And I know I might get shit on for that, but like, I just feel like it was too much of running around in the dark, and like it's cool to do for a little bit, but I just feel like that part overstayed its welcome. And then another thing I wasn't a big fan of, like the dinner scene, I thought was awesome, but really as soon as Sally's the only one left, from there to the end of the movie, which is like maybe like 30 minutes or so, is just like constant screaming. And I was like, yo,
you're not wrong.
Relax for like 2 minutes. Like, give me like 2 minutes to not hear screaming and I'll be fine. But like, I literally like turned the volume way down because like, I'm sure my neighbors were like, what the fuck is going on here? And not only that, but like, it was starting to just like really like get annoying to me, which I know is partially the point, because all that screaming and the intense, quick nature of it was supposed to be like fear-inducing and like
Right.
like you kind of mentioned, like panic attack kind of, and like I get that and I understand, but I was just like, dude, this is just like a little too much for me. I don't know. Yeah, so I just thought like it kind of that part, the last 30 minutes just overstayed its welcome to me personally.
So I've been kind of quiet here.
Yeah, you
but
have.
Nico secretly activated my trap card when
no.
he said tension. So let me tell you.
Oh, no.
So
I never want to activate your tension on accident or intentionally, frankly.
oh, so basically here, check me out, right? So I feel like first off, I think there are a couple scenes that I would have maybe liked to, because not a terrible amount actually happens in this movie.
Right.
Literally, they pick up a hitchhiker, kick him out, go to a gas station, go to a house. Leatherface kills 2 of them. Leatherface kills a third of them. Leatherface kills Franklin. Sally runs around, run. Gas station, house, truck, the end. That's all that happens in the movie, right? So
You're not wrong.
I feel like, in general, I almost feel like the parts that I thought maybe the movie could have taken a little bit more time with, they didn't.
What parts could they have taken more time with, though? Genuinely curious. Like, what do you think
So-
needed more development?
I think the killing of the characters, like anyone who listens to, our stuff knows that I'm always a massive supporter of not blowing your load too quickly when it comes to like killing off your characters. I think a movie is almost, not quite, but almost a little bit less fun when there's only one person left to kill.
Certainly, yeah, I agree with that.
So I kind of feel like, okay, so these 2 characters, they head out to the creek because they want to go for a swim or something like that, right? Okay, that's fine. I feel that. They go to a house. Leatherface boops them both on the head. Like, is that not what he, literally.
That's pretty much exactly what happens.
His name was Kirk. I wrote his name. I remember his name was Kirk because I had in my head, Kirk got murked.
I was going to make that joke later, but
yeah, like literally, he walked up in Leatherface's house. Leatherface is going like, and like Kirk just like,
Can we get that one more time? He was like, what now?
I guess he was supposed to be making animal noises. I don't know what the hell he was making, okay? He was just doing some gibberish. And I was like, what the fuck sound is
Having
this?
fun, okay? He was having fun.
Well, Kirk walked right up and then Leatherface like ambushed him and just block, like hit him on the head. And like, that was supposed to be the sound of like a microphone getting hit. I didn't want to hit my microphone. But like, the point being is like he hit him like a clocks and then like, boom, he falls down, right? That's it, he's done. And then like Pam, I believe it is, she follows into the house immediately after. Kirk, where are you? She's done too. So like, I don't know. I feel like that to me could have been a little bit longer. Maybe Leatherface could have chased them down a little bit. So we had less chasing with Sally and maybe more chasing with them.
I also think that's indicative of how realistic the murder aspect of it could be, though. Like, when you have a maniac like Leatherface, I don't think Leatherface is going to be thinking in terms of like, oh yeah, well, the rising action's going on right now, so I really want to lengthen out the tension here.
I mean, okay, but realistically, if we look at horror movies and everyone's, this is a character battle, everyone's out of character, aiming to kill. Well, there's a ton of horror movies that you could then, put that on with saying like, oh, well,
And
this
I will,
ghost-
and
this
probably
ghost should
have.
have just immediately killed them this very second. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like as whoever wrote the script or the plot should have wrote it so that, maybe there's a little more with some of the other characters instead of them just kind of immediately getting killed. And Franklin, man.
Maybe that's how it happens. Based on a
Franklin
true
spends not really. Franklin spends the whole movie just like getting shit on.
mm-hmm.
And I thought he was going to do something good. Nope. He gets killed by Leatherface,
I still
which,
don't
by
like
the way,
Franklin.
I liked him.
He's
But as a
smartest
side
of
note,
all of them.
yep. As a side note, though, how did they not hear Leatherface's chainsaw?
Yeah, I was wondering that like the whole movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like they're in the woods at night. Y'all know it's quiet in the woods at night.
It is. It's true.
And like aside from like maybe a frog, some crickets. But
Are you about
like
to get into more fisticuffs with some amphibians again, Justin?
not this time. But like I mean, I don't know. I feel like you would have heard that. But yeah, that's how I felt about the pacing. But time to break this moment up. Not with a Kit Kat, not sponsored, but how about some trivia, Dan?
God,
I know there's one or two kind of cool circumstances surrounding this movie. So why don't you hit us with the circumference of those circumstances so that we may divine the radii?
Yeah, this
Wow.
movie I think has actually some fascinating sort of behind the scenes trivia. So one thing that I thought was really like crazy and almost like method acting almost, I guess, was this film, due to budget constraints, was filmed 7 days a week, long hours. And that dinner scene at the end was filmed when it was 110 degrees outside in the Texas heat. When you add in like the filming lights and everything, the food on the table rotted very quickly. And the room didn't have very good ventilation, so the stench and the reek just kind of like, just sat there.
No.
And apparently it was actually like genuinely health threatening. And they filmed for 27 hours straight during that. So apparently several of the actors actually suffered like for real, like sanity slippage. So I guess they started taking Tobe Hooper's direction as their characters. Like they started taking it to heart sort of, which you don't want when they're cannibalistic murderers. So apparently in the DVD commentary, I didn't see this myself, but apparently Gunnar Hansen, who plays Leatherface, actually recounted how he genuinely wanted to kill Marilyn Burns for a few seconds after his in film, the brother tells him to kill her. And then Edwin Neal, who plays the hitchhiker, said that making the film was more miserable than his service in Vietnam, and that he might actually kill the director if he ever saw him again.
I believe it.
And that's just crazy.
I have one more piece of trivia to add, not nearly as cool, but the movie kind of does have a little message about meat. At the start, they drive past a meat packing plant, and they talk about how back in the day they used to boop the cows over the head with like a mallet or a hammer, but now they don't do that anymore, and maybe the old way was better. And they also apparently, some people have described this as a pro-vegetarian film because like the people eat the cows, but then the evil guys eat people. So in a way, eating meat kind of evil. But also, the director supposedly gave up meat while making the film. And
Shit, I probably would too.
that's kind of a comment. And, kind of, I guess another thing I forgot to mention was it's kind of a commentary on, killing sentient beings, that kind of thing. And apparently Guillermo del Toro, and I did not know this, and I can't verify this fact, but GDT hit me up. Apparently he became a vegetarian for a little while after seeing this film. So I don't know. I didn't know that.
Became a dead man, was it?
Yeah, I think he was dead man.
Yeah. There's a niche reference for y'all.
Well,
play Death Stranding, it's too real.
One thing I did also want to bring up, though, is about Leatherface. He actually has 3 different masks during this film. He has the killing mask, an old lady mask, and a pretty woman mask. So apparently the reason why he wears these masks is that the mask determines his personality.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and that Leatherface himself doesn't actually have any sort of personality. At one point we see him in the old lady mask, and that's when the two characters are exploring the house, like at first when you kind of first see him. He's wearing an apron and carrying a wooden spoon. He's trying to be domestic and sort of like helpful in the kitchen. Or wait, no, that's not that scene. That's later on. That's before, I think before the dinner scene. Yeah. But yeah, he's supposed to be more helpful and more domestic. During the dinner, he wears the pretty woman mask, which is like a female wig, a black suit, and the mask itself has like makeup and stuff on it. And this is supposed to be him dressing up for dinner, like you would like a nice, Sunday dinner or something like that. And then you've got the killing mask, which is skin, and that's when he runs around murdering people. So that I feel like that's almost even more terrifying, just like knowing that he uses the masks to express himself because he actually can't do it himself.
And it's part of a routine. Like,
right, yeah.
It's so normalized for them that he has literal different outfits for it. That's fucking nuts.
I was going to say, I thought that suit was kind of fly.
Yeah.
Like when he's at the dinner table, I was like, hey, man pulls it off. So speaking of, pulling it off, legacy, what movies have pulled things from this one? This movie came out in 1974, so long before our time. But it, for obviously when it first came out, it was controversial. I think, it said that the director, he tried to censor some of the blood so that he could get a PG rating. Now, audience, think back then there wasn't a PG-13. It was just PG or R.
Even then.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Even then, like, I don't know how you thought a family of cannibals, killing out and eating.
Family friendly.
Yeah. Like that was never going to happen. So I guess, where does this fall for you guys? And, we talk about slashers sometimes, like the Holy Trinity being Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Is this the almost forgotten predecessor to those, maybe? Does it deserve more credit than it gets?
I think that's a good way to put it. A forgotten predecessor. I do think it's hugely influential. I wouldn't really say it's totally forgotten though, because it does have a huge following and huge influence. So whereas in mainstream media, maybe it's not quite as popular, but I think it's gotten its due for sure.
When you say Texas Chain Saw Massacre, people know what the fuck you're talking about.
Everybody knows, even if they haven't seen it or don't have any interest in it. Everyone knows this movie.
I guess for me, I think what I said. I think to me it is kind of forgotten a little bit. And don't get me wrong, right? I know there's been a ton of sequels, remakes, and all that stuff, and I just kind of feel like when people really sit down and talk about it, I feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre doesn't get mentioned in the same breath as Halloween.
That's
or
true.
Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. And to be blunt and to be completely honest, Friday the 13th, that movie was pretty bare bones as well. Like the first one.
Oh yeah, certainly.
I probably still deciding, might like Friday the 13th more than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I feel like just the way things shook out, just how all these people got killed. I feel like it's almost like watching like an old Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse cartoon. Okay, we got Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse now, but that's what they were like back then. And if those didn't exist, these wouldn't have existed. That's just kind of how I feel about it. I think, in short, they should put more respect on its name.
I kind of agree, and I'll keep my point short here, just because this was one of the more, I guess, not enjoyable movies that I've watched for the pod, at least for me. Like, I didn't really... It was more disturbing than fascinating, I thought, and that itself is, there's something to be said. Like, if you're looking to experience the full spectrum of human emotion, then like certainly watch this, you will feel something. But I don't know, like, it's just, it didn't feel like a slasher in the same way that Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Nightmare are slashers. It felt more like disturbing than those. I guess that's probably just because it's based in reality.
It's not really based in reality. No.
I genuinely know nothing about the background of this stuff.
It's not. It was marketed that way, and it's like super, super duper loosely based on Ed Gein. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Another killer.
Yeah.
But like it's like very loosely based on that. It's mostly fiction.
Okay, never mind then.
It's about as real as Friday the 13th. So.
Never mind then.
But speaking of minds, I want to know what's in yours. So what would you guys do in this scenario? Let's say, the three of us are going down to Texas because, Dan, I guess you got family down there, and we're going to hit up your abandoned family house.
All right.
So first off, we see
Let me stop you there. Let me just stop you there and say no.
I would
not do that.
If Dan was like, hey, I'm going to go out to some property my family owns, you trying to go on a road trip?
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, you would. So Nico's there, even grudgingly, Nico's there. And first off, so we're going down and we see a hitchhiker. Dude seems kind of off. Would you pick him up in that sweltering Texas sun?
No.
Honestly, I'm sorry, but no, homie.
All right, so we drive right past and never have that encounter with the hitchhiker. So we get to the gas station. Dan's like, you guys got any gas? Dude's like, no. I wouldn't go up to that house, though, if I were you. Do we still go? Or are you like, you know what, guys?
Fuck no.
I feel like I would. I mean, it's my house.
Yeah, I would too. I'd be like, you know what? Nah, we gotta go. Although, quick
Nah.
side note, I feel like he wasn't looking out for them. I feel like he wanted them to stay so that later on that night he could cook them and eat them.
Yeah, I think he was going to murder
Probably.
him anyways.
So let's say, we get up to the property, we look around, everything is, it's old, a little bit broken down, but it's okay. But we need some gas. First off, would any of us go by ourselves?
Nope.
No.
Buddy
Would you go into another person's house?
Nope.
Nope.
Now, granted, Kirk was knocking on that door like he was the goddamn police. He was like,
Bro, he
open the
stayed
fucking
knocking
door.
on that door.
The guy's like, calm the fuck down.
It was
Jesus
so
Christ.
unnecessary. And then he like went into their house more than a few paces and was like, hello? Like
Yeah.
the fucking gall on this asshole. Are you kidding
Bro,
me?
as soon as I hear like Leatherface making his weird noises, I would have been like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need to be here, bro.
Leatherface
I'm
is in
out.
the back like, and he's like, huh, what's that? Let me go
Like
investigate.
he heard a motor going or motor going. Excuse
Yeah, you know what
me.
you wanted to say.
He heard bad shit and he walked towards it instead of away.
Yep.
The whitest goddamn movie I've ever seen.
Kind of
That's my
is.
criticism.
Yeah.
Kind of is. No, I'm not gonna lie. So we agreed no one would do that. Now let's say Leatherface just comes out the cut with the chainsaw. Are we just gonna Scooby-Doo run away from him until he trips and falls?
I feel
yes,
like-
that's what I would do.
Yeah. That or like we would actually just trip him ourselves.
Dan sprints ahead, pulls a rope. I jump over. Nico pushes him.
Dead ass though.
Fatality. No, but I mean, like, I don't know. To be fair, and let me ask you guys this. Is Leatherface an intimidating, kind of moving away from, what would you do? Because I feel like this is a pretty down-to-earth scenario where we'd either A, get the fuck out, or B, fight or flight, right? Like,
I will say one part that I was like, I know exactly what I would do when Sally is getting beat by the broom by like a
Oh, yeah.
fucking dude. Like this dude is like beating her with the straw part of the broom. Like one, that doesn't fucking hurt. Two, just grab the goddamn broom and just like break it
Yeah.
or some shit or like
So-
wrest it out of his hand. Like,
so that scene actually pissed me off quite a bit, and I'll save it for the next piece, but that was a fucking Wild Boy scene. So let me ask you guys this right quick though. Leatherface that was a big lad they had in that suit, that getup.
Absolute
Because
unit.
pretty much, yes. So do you find the concept of this cannibal family to be scary?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fair
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Now, would you maybe say that this is maybe scarier because it's something that could feasibly happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
I
Okay,
think the
that's fair.
movie did a really good job of just being disturbing. Like I think Nico had mentioned before, like Leatherface to me didn't come off as like a sadistic killer,
Oh, no.
not at all.
but he came off as like a really like,
Animalistic almost.
yeah, and like quirky. Quirky isn't quite the right word, but
Quirky.
but like in the sense that like the first kills that he makes, I feel like he just almost accidentally killed them. Not quite accidentally, but like self-preservation, like, oh shit, they found me. Well, okay,
Yeah.
clunk, and
And he
then
literally
like that's
does
it.
clumsily boop him on
Yeah.
the head.
Yeah.
Kirk, anyway.
And then of course like the whole Leatherface, the mask part of it, and just the movie did a really good job of keeping everything just really fucking disturbing.
So let's go ahead now, and since we're kind of talking about it already, if you had to name one favorite scene, what would it be? And you know what? I'm going to lead here. So there's a part where Franklin is trying to convince his sister that they got to get out. And I like this scene because it shows two things. First, it shows me that Sally is not a good person.
No.
So throughout the film, Franklin, like we said before, he's in a wheelchair, and his friends are complete dicks. Like, they all go to explore this house when they first get there. Keep in mind, this is like Franklin's family's house.
Yeah.
And they like leave Franklin. He can't even get over like a little there's like a little barricade or something like that in place, and he's trying to get his wheelchair over it. And no one is trying to help this poor guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, what a bunch of dicks. And then so at that point in time, it's night, it's late, it's scary. Franklin is like, listen, I'm not trying, this is not good for me. Sally's like, I'll go looking for him. And do what? Clearly something has happened to your friends. And Franklin's like, no, we should just go. No, we should just go. No, we should just go. And doesn't want to give her the flashlight. And she's like, fine, I'll go in the dark by myself. Okay, cool. And what's Franklin going to do by himself? And that's the thing, is like, she basically dooms Franklin. So I don't know. I like that scene, and it's kind of an odd scene to pick as my favorite, but I like it because to me, that's just the culmination of, and they even have a conversation earlier on. Franklin's like, you didn't want me to come, did you? And she's like, no, I did. And it's like, no, you really didn't. You think it's a drag. And like, I don't know, just, I feel like sometimes the way they treat Franklin, not nice. But that was my scene. Dan, why don't you go ahead next?
I think my scene is, even though I kind of gave it shit earlier, the dinner scene, specifically, so they kind of like knock Sally out, and then she wakes up and she's sitting at a dinner table with everyone, and again, alluding to the fact that they're eating people and everything. But it sort of like shows her horror and her going like crazy. And there's like some really cool shots that zoom in on her eyes and her face and everything. And like the camera gets real close to her eye. And I mean, her eye takes up like almost the entire screen, and you can see like the iris and just everything about her eye. And it's really, really cool, like the bloodshot. And I just thought that was really cool. So while I maybe had issues with other parts of that scene, I think those cuts were really, really cool.
All right, and Nico, how about you?
So I said mine earlier but I will just reiterate that the scene where the patriarch is feeding from Sally's finger is just profoundly existentially terrifying, as well as just situationally horrifying to think about the position that Sally is in and just everything going on. Yeah, it just really felt like what it feels like to have a panic attack. And I thought that was artistically done insofar as it represented that.
So, and Nico, it's funny that you said that because that was my favorite scene. You said it first, so you kind of laid claim to it there. But now let's talk about criticisms. So, and we've talked, I think, through a bunch of criticisms already, so we can kind of, go easy on this one. But I think for me, probably my biggest criticism overall of the movie, just to kind of say it again, is just the issues that I spoke about earlier with the pacing. And also once or twice, I kind of felt like Leatherface's chainsaw should have been more audible to specifically Franklin and Sally. Because Leatherface kind of like stealth kills Kirk. So I could understand Pam kind of not hearing or anything like that, but I don't know. Dan, any criticisms for you outside of kind of what we talked about with the pacing?
That's really it for me.
Nico.
I don't know, man. Like, I wish it was more enjoyable, but I feel like that was the point. So I can't really think of any actual criticisms for once, in the strangest of ways.
Here's something odd. Right before we get to the review portion, Leatherface, his name is only said like once.
Yeah.
When the hitchhiker's bringing down the grandfather, the patriarch, and he goes, "Hey, Leatherface, come here and help me with Grandpa." I think to me that's the only time. I'm not sure if it's ever said ever again.
I don't think it is.
Also, sorry, I forgot this one criticism. How the fuck did you lose to a broom with a knife? Like, Sally grabs a knife, and then the cook like has a broom, and he does some like, I don't even know. He must like have studied the art of the broom or something like that.
Foo.
He literally hit her with a sweep because like he like disarms her successfully with the broom, and I was like, dude, this is some shit you would see in like, I don't know, like that's some shit you would see like Jackie Chan do, right? Jackie Chan's famous for fighting with like shit around the house. Like I feel like he would fight somebody with a knife with a broom, but like, come on, bro. Anyways, critical review. So this movie has been very well reviewed by critics. It's gotten 89% from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's gotten 82% from the audience. So where does this rank for you guys? And this is something that I think we've all kind of had to think about a little bit. But Nico, we're going to go ahead and start off with you.
You always fucking start with me on the ones that I don't have a good grasp on. Well, not that I don't have a good grasp on the film. This is really frustrating for me because, like, I do think that if you're a fan of horror, you should watch this. And also the previous recommendation, if you're just trying to, experience a full range of human emotion, this is certainly fucking something, but I didn't enjoy the movie that much. And so I think because of that, I'm going to give it This is weird to say, but like a 62.
Wow. Dan, thoughts?
I kind of agree with Nico a lot. This film was super disturbing, which I think is really cool that it was able to do that and achieved it well. But I didn't like enjoy it, as weird as that is. We know
Yeah.
sometimes people enjoy, that kind of shit, which is cool, but not quite my thing. I would
Not
give
our
a
thing to
little
have fun.
right. I would give it a little higher though. I would put it at, I'm gonna say a 72.
So I actually am going to give this movie a 75. First off, I don't think I was quite as disturbed as you guys were by some of the things that happened to Sally. I honestly think to a certain extent there was a little bit of overacting with the constant screaming. But I got to give this movie its props because this kind of, was kind of setting into a little bit of unknown terrain here. And it's also very raw, And this was an independent movie as well.
Which you can tell.
Yeah, and that's my thing. And so like when you take into account, like I can't evaluate this movie from the point I have to balance the fact that it's 2020 and I'm looking at this movie and it's like, okay, so, I think the review I'm giving it is how I feel about it in 2020. I can almost guarantee you money that if I was, back then, I might be rating this much, much, much higher.
Oh, for certain.
But, it's kind of like I've seen this bag of tricks already. Yeah, but this was the original bag of tricks. So I have to balance the legacy. And I can't give it anything lower than a 75. I think to me, it's almost like listening to a classic record, like, yeah, you might not necessarily like it 100%. You might not like all the tracks, but there's some cool shit there still to see.
Right.
And I can almost tell you that dinner scene, there's so much that happens in that dinner scene that you can actually see in other movies, including movies that we've reviewed.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
There's pieces of it. So I give it a 75. But now, would you recommend this to a friend? Dan?
I think if you're down to be disturbed, yes.
Nico?
No. Sorry.
Wow. Yes, I would recommend this to a friend with the caveat that this has to be a friend who likes horror. I think if it's for somebody who doesn't like horror, it's just going to be kind of...
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah. And in that case, I would recommend it to a horror fan, but to regular Joe Schmo, fuck no.
Yeah, because again, I think it has value for its legacy and historical
consider
place.
my vote change to yes then, given the context.
Now, golden seal of approval, 1, 2, 3, no.
No.
Okay, then. So... But that's been it from us here at Don't Open That Door. If you like what you've heard, please go ahead and give us a follow. We're on Twitter at DOTD Horror. We're on Instagram under the same name. That's at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. Don't Open That Door. So yeah, we hope everyone keeps themselves safe. Enjoy this last week of October because once it's gone, it's not coming back till next year. And we've got a little surprise coming up for you guys on Halloween. So stay tuned for that. Until then, have a nice night, ladies and gents. And please, don't open that door. Bye.